A very good morning, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Harbourcraft Safety Forum. My name is Juliana Yao, and I'm delighted to be your host for this morning. This forum is one of the many events under the International Safety at Sea Week 2022, an annual event that is organized by the Maritime and Port Authority of Singapore as its commitment to promote safety at sea. So this morning's session is brought to you by the MPA Harbourcraft Safety Work Group under the National Maritime Safety at Sea Council, and we hope that it will help to instill a strong safety culture for the harbourcraft industry. To start off, I'd like to invite Captain Hari Subramaniam, Regional Head of Business Relations and Medici at the Ship Owners P&I Club for his presentation titled, How Data from Harbourcraft Incidents Can Inform Decisions for Safety at Sea. Captain Hari, please.
I'm not restricted to here, so I'm already wired up, so I press a button, I think I'll blow up. So I'm quite fortunate because usually I always get the session after lunch. I think the organizers have been kind and they've given me. So usually I prepare such to cater to sleeping audiences, but don't worry, I think with all the statistics, I'll finally put you all to sleep. It's good to see a turnout. It's been a while since we've all met in person, and we're getting back to a normal life. So mindful that the clock has already started ticking, I think I'll get on to my presentation. Right, so this is a very powerful slide. It just shows you the power of Photoshop, So if you're ever going for a photo, make sure you get your Photoshop. But I've been around for a while, and faintly I'm speaking because I work for the Ship Owners P&I Club, and we specialize in smaller tonnage with the insurance market, especially in Singapore. So a few statistics about our club. We are established in 1855. We are the second oldest P&I insurer. There are 13 clubs of the international group of P&I, and we collectively insure 95% of the world tonnage. We specialize in smaller vessels, so harbour crafts are definitely our forte. I've got a couple of more slides over there, which you all would think this is blatant marketing of the Ship Owners Club, but it's not. Although it's my rice bowl, I just need to impose on you all on what authority we speak, because we collectively insure most of the harbour craft vessels globally. Our office is there in Singapore. We've been established here from 2009, and I've been part of the team. And we are financially sound, because there's a lot of queries on that post-COVID on how financially sound your organization is. So we are. This is just a slide to show you the number of vessels we insured. This is not the most, this is not the latest slide, but in 2021, as you can see in numbers as compared to the other 12 P&I clubs, on an average they do anything between 1,000 to about say 5,000 or 6,000. But since we specialize in smaller tonnage, and although our quantity of total quantum of tonnage is less, the number of boats we insure is quite huge. A little bit on where we are on a global perspective. So this is what I got from the United Nations chart, and it shows that the total world fleet, this is only about 100 gross tons, is about 103,000 tons, and our count of vessels that is over 100 gross tons alone is about 20,000 plus. So you can see it's nearly 20% of the global fleet is what we insure in terms of number of vessels. And this does not include less than 100 gross tons. We've got many of the smaller ones. This does not include another close to 14,000 vessels, which generally form in the harbour craft category. A little bit more on our regional presence. As you can see, more than 51% of the harbour craft tonnage is actually entered from the Singapore branch. So while people like to think that insurance is predominantly heavy from the London side of things, no, Singapore is equally important, and we've got a huge book of business over here. Another one, a snapshot, 51.5% like I told you, but if you see just on the harbour craft tonnage, more than 25% easily. So we've got statistics of a lot more. I've shared with Captain Chong as well, and we do projects such as this to raise awareness in the industry. A number of Singapore crafts, what we have, Harbour crafts in Singapore itself, global itself, is 23,000 vessels. That's a very nice photograph. And in Singapore, we've got about 1,400 Harbour crafts itself and a tonnage of 2.13 million gross tons. So now I've gone for the marketing bit, so I'll go on to some more meaningful stuff. We've done an analysis of the claims on board the Harbour crafts so that it's very important for us to see. Today's discussion is basically to see what we can do. The Harbour Craft Safety Forum of the MPA has come together with this session. So let's see what's wrong. It's important to see what's wrong, because if we don't realize what's broken, or if something is broken, it may not be broken, and then what we have this habit of knee-jerking into a plethora of initiatives. Let's do this, let's do that. I want to put it on LinkedIn, and Sea Trade will cover it, blah, blah. But you could be completely barking up the wrong tree. So it's very important that we see where we stand in terms what is going wrong, and we have a huge amount of data on that. This is the global claims we had seen on Harbour crafts between 2017 and 2020-21. So 5 years of analysis is what we did. As you can see from there, the third party negligence and uncontrollable is a huge stat. Unfortunately, we'd like to think that we don't have any role to play. It's third party, it doesn't matter. But a lot of these claims are other vessels coming and knocking our vessels. So it's a human error or a human element, I would like to use, which happens on those kind of vessels as well. The human factor, as you can see, standalone is quite high, and I'm stressing on the word human factor and human element because it's not human error. And also personal illness, which is something we will be touching along on how important personal hygiene is, physical health is, and how it ties into mental well-being, and how that can actually lead into a safety culture. A number of Harbourcraft claims by claim type, as you can see, quite expected. Navigation and personal injury are quite high. In the Harbourcraft from the community over here, pollution is not exactly something of a huge magnitude we expect from here. And also cargo claims, it's minimal because not exactly cargo carrying vessels as such, but navigation, because we were having this conversation earlier with Caroline and all that, and we were just talking about how congested our waters can be, but it's not impossible to navigate, but you need to be experienced and have a square head. You need to be focused, you need to be motivated, and that all ties in with well-being, etc., which we will be covering during our panel discussion. Oh, this is a very colorful slide, and I was specifically asked to make it so bling bling, not to wake you all up because it's a morning session, but we had to be able to discern this. I wouldn't go too much into the slide because I'm not a numbers monster, but just to show you the human factor is quite high. Inadequate maintenance is also a factor. Inadequate maintenance is not necessarily machinery breaking down on its own free will. We humans have a huge role in maintaining that and making sure that they are purring to optimum levels. And of course, personal illness is a huge spike over there. I've broken down the claims as such so we can see how it is per type of claim. The total number of Harbourcraft claims in Singapore in those 5 years costed 1.2 million. We've already said cargo claims are not a huge magnitude as such, not a worrying trend as such. An average number of 78. So the cost of an average Harbourcraft claim with regard to cargo was about $16,000 approximately. Going to navigation claims, this is one of the higher quantums if you remember from the earlier charts. The total cost of claims in the last 5 years was about close to 7 million, which is quite a lot of money. When you think Harbourcrafts, small vessels, really not huge claims, you would be surprised. We had 272 claims, and the average cost of the navigational claims totaled up over here to about 25,500 per claim. However, I must tell you, don't be misled by this figure. Navigational claims can be very, very expensive. So please don't go away with a false pretense saying that if I have a claim, it should be about $25,000 from Captain Hari. Yeah, I should be able to stomach that. It's not. If you've been following the news recently, the Tasmanian tugs, there was bad weather and we had casualty with 2 tugs of Tasmania, and the club was involved in that. Just those 2 vessels, I can tell you, has run into several millions. So it's not necessary that these stats are so sanitized that it'll be a nice 5-figure. It could be a 7 or 8-figure claim. So don't be disillusioned by this, and make sure you have proper insurance. I must say that because I'm from the industry, and you should be well covered. Illness and injury claims, I've clubbed this into one because these are people claims. As you can see, they're quite high. There is one trend that they're always high. So it's nothing about you have up and down years. People claims are quite significantly high throughout the year. And this is quite close to our navigational claims, $6 million over 5 years, over 300 claims, and about an average of 18,000 per claim. However, again, the caveat for all these claims is don't think that you will get away lightly. The moment you think you're okay, it comes in numbers and it can be quite high. Pollution claims are not significant over here, $170,000. Now we've come down to pennies. We're only talking in thousands of dollars. 20 claims and about 8,500 per claim. So this is just to give you an average to see from numbers if you want to discern what trends there are. I don't see any particular trends. I just see the claims happening, and this is something we have to work together and bring them down. So I've already spoken about this on the crew injury claims. It's been broken down, but I think a lot of it we're talking about crew focus. I think it's just that people mind are not on the job. Our minds are also wavering after COVID. I mean, we shouldn't hold it as something that's significantly specific to seafarers on harbor crafts. We ourselves working from home, today shall I work from home, or today can I go to the office as such. We ourselves are governed with so many of these factors that it's really not you go into office 5 days a week, you sit down in front of your desk, you focus. Those days are gone. I hope it comes back, and I'm not sure everybody in the room agrees with me, but it just helps to stay more on the job. So there was predominantly a human element in nearly everything. People always say machinery failure, the machine failed, this part gave up, but then again, you've got a planned maintenance system which the people are supposed to be doing, and then it's not always done. Quite often procedures are there due to stress, personal stress or whatever reasons. It can be a shortcut of a tick box exercise, and it's important for people to realize that these tick box exercises can actually make a big tick when it comes to claims. I've done a little bit on crew illness claims because one of the themes of today's discussion is also going to be on physical health. So illness is quite important to discuss. We've done a recap over here in 2021 from the club on what claims we saw. As you can see, appendicitis is high, but appendicitis unfortunately is not something you can detect at a pre-employment stage. It is one of those things that can just happen overnight, but heart-related problems are huge. With the amount of heart-related problem, breathing difficulties, stress, chest pain, all these things actually, and most of these things are something we can catch at a pre-employment stage, and the club is working towards that direction. Stomach and abdominal claims, these are also something people are walking around with kidney stones, gallstones, and these are not something that develop overnight. So if you have a robust pre-employment medical scheme, then definitely they can be trapped. The club has a Medici program which we run for our seafarers, for members entered. So we have an enhanced pre-employment medical examination we have to go by region. We can't roll out to the whole world. You can see the magnitude of our tonnage. So we have to keep it slowly, more, not bite more than what we can chew. But we've got it now for Indonesian, Filipino, and Indian seafarers. We will be going out to Malaysia. We're looking to go to Myanmar. We're going to Thailand. So slowly, the plan of the club is to make this available to seafarers in all parts of the world. And this is coming at no additional cost. So the club is actually paying all the additional cost per seafarer, and there is no additional financial burden on shipping companies or the seafarers. So this is something, you all can always talk to me later about this. I'll be happy to share. I'm quite excited about this scheme. Like I said, gallstones, kidney stones don't occur overnight, and these are causes of claims where if they do occur, you have to repatriate the person. It's not something that you could just swallow a few pills and say, oh, I passed my stone. It's not so simple. You have to repatriate the people. You have to make a substitution of people coming. And I think the people in the room know how expensive repatriation is nowadays. After COVID, phenomenal. I mean, it's gone through the roof. Your OPEX is literally, you cannot even account. Even now, if I have to fly to Indonesia for a seminar, I need to plan about 2 months in advance, and if I'm lucky, I'll get a ticket for about $600. And if I want to go next week, I'll probably have to buy the airplane, So you can't really have crew changes as frequently as we used to do. The thoughts to take away from today: I don't have the answers. I have a whole plethora of problems. If I had the answers, then probably I would be out there sorting out everybody with my crystal ball. But I'm here giving you all more problems which you all already know. So the human error is something we've always had. It's a fault-finding culture where it was thought you could just kind of find out, yeah, he's the one who caused it, and, case closed. But it's not so simple. We are talking of the human element. We are going into a more holistic viewpoint nowadays when we are doing our causation globally to find out that why things are going wrong. We've got a lot of legislation. Everything is legislated. Even if you want to sneeze, you probably fill up a checklist. And there's so many of training programs. There are free podcasts. There are free training programs. The seafarer has got an abundance of knowledge. He's got access to everything. And for everything else, there's Google. You will just go, Alexa, something, and then Alexa will tell you what to do. But it's not a lack of training or knowledge, but still there are incidents. So what's wrong? Is this a lack of concentration? Are people not focusing? I think that's quite close to what we've been discussing. What has changed? Earlier we had a different lifestyle on board. The ecosystem on shipping was different. The ecosystem is completely different now. Fatigue management, I was having a discussion with a colleague. Fatigue management is something which everyone needs to look at. The hours of rest and hours of work that people fill up on the forms on board are quite easily filled up. In fact, sometimes they are not filling it up. The cadet has got to the end of the month. He fills up all those forms along with the overtime to make sure they tally. But that's not the thing. The thing is they are not rested. Is social media, is this a boon or a bane? We could spend the whole day discussing and we could all go back with our own views. You don't get seafarers joining on board. They will ask you how much bandwidth you've got. Got Wi-Fi on board, how much bandwidth, how much can I download? What is the speed? Even I don't know the answers of all this. But these are the questions seafarers ask. At the same time, when you go on board, they don't rest. Why? Because in the rest hours, Insta, who's eating what, they must see. Who's going out for which movie with who, everything, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. And then what happens is they have to sort out all the problems at home on WhatsApp. The wife will give you a whole list of problems, the shopping list of problems of today. And there you are remote controlling, sorting out everything. And then by the time you finish, oh, it's time for my watch. Then you show up for wash completely fresh that way. And then you're definitely going to have problems on board. So isolation, people take their personal devices, they get isolated, they lock themselves in their rooms and they download. Maybe the things they want to watch is not something you could watch on a public scale, but they prefer to tuck away in their cabins and do so. The number of crew levels, a very controversial topic. Do we have enough people on board, especially in the harbour craft? Sometimes you may not have more than one. Interact with who then? Talk to myself. That's a question that we can discuss, whether quantity versus quality. Is it really something that is worth? Because it has to be measured and not knee-jerk reactions. Hygiene on board, it's quite important. Many people don't like to wash. They like to wear it reverse, inside out and all that stuff. From the sailors, they will say you don't have to say that in public, but that can lead to a lot of unnecessary hygiene problems and uncomfortable itches when you need to have your hands on the steering wheel. They could be busy elsewhere trying to give yourself relief. Work procedures and morale on board. Food for motivation is quite important. Do we need a CEO? Not a chief executive officer, chief entertainment officer. You need to have somebody to look after the well-being, take care of people. Nowadays with Zoom, you can have online bingos, you can have online quiz sessions, you can have it across the fleets. Yeah, people might think, but harbour craft, what I do morning to evening. That is the people who are local. Probably the Singaporeans who are sailing on board the harbour craft will go home every day to eat in the kopitiam. But you have a lot of foreigners on board and they are on board for months together. They matter. I mean, they actually form a majority of this. They matter. So if you can have things like this that de-stresses them and there's some social interaction, even though virtually, then it's opened the doors. Some positives about COVID is actually opened the doors where we've learned to reach out virtually and engage with people throughout the world. I think a lot of people are watching virtually as well who will agree with me. So these are a few thoughts to pave the way for the next thing. I've not touched on fatigue management because our next speaker, Mark, has said, that's my territory. I'm talking on this. Don't you dare venture. So thank you very much. If there are any questions, I think we will take them later via Pigeonhole. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Captain Subramaniam, for your sharing. Those statistics definitely gave us all a better overview of some of the issues that the harbourcraft industry is facing. So our second speaker that we're going to be inviting up on stage is Mr. Mark Koh, Executive Director of Tiansan Shipping Private Limited and a member of the National Maritime Safety at Sea Council in Singapore. He will be sharing a presentation with the title, Forging Ahead Together with Safety. Mr. Koh, please.
All right, all set up. First of all, very good morning to everyone here today. I'm very pleased to see a good turnout of companies and stakeholders from the industry. I think that this is a sign that our industry takes safety very seriously, and we're all dedicating our precious time to come here today to talk about it. Over the past 2 years, most of us have had the opportunity to continue operations as essential service operators. Most of our crew instantly became frontliners in the defense against COVID-19. And the opportunity to work came with many safe management rules that we had to abide with. And for those with shipyards, we all had to endure like EDB inspections every 2 weeks. Most of us will recall that in the first year of the pandemic, the industry did well to adhere to the new rules and regulations to deal with COVID-19. But then, somewhere along the way, a few bad apples had broken the rules and were caught. Almost immediately, our industry was in MOH's spotlight, and new rules and regulations came fast and furious. I believe that we had a new regulation almost every 2 weeks over 2021 that we had to clamor to all weekend, late nights, just to adhere to. On top of all the new regulations, all our crew were not allowed to disembark from their vessels for recreational and personal matters. This combination was a time bomb of mental health issues for both our sea and shore staff, and that could translate into any form of accidents at sea. But through the countless hours put in by our teams, the dedication of our crew, and the support of all our industry stakeholders, and by this I mean everyone here in the audience today, back in the office and on the vessels, we managed to pull through relatively unscathed. Our safety incidents during COVID-19 actually went down. And to this, I think everyone here deserves a round of applause for the hard work that was put in. Today, I'm here to talk about how we can all create a good safety culture for our companies and our industry as a whole. But in all honesty, all harborcraft companies, large, medium, small, we all have adopted a good safety culture over the past 2 years in combating COVID. If we didn't, we would not be successful. Everyone has the building blocks of a good safety culture already in place. An SMM that have both clear company policies and clear organizational guidelines on who is responsible for what. A communication system capable of relaying the latest information to all our team members, whether be it through toolbox meetings, WhatsApp chats, emails, notices, and so on. We have periodic inspection regimes to ensure that policies are being adhered to. And most importantly, we have dedicated team members that have already bought into safety. All of our team members have been working tirelessly towards safety in the past 2 years. So for the next few minutes, I want to convince everyone here to continue keeping up the good systems we already have in place. Not because MPA is regulating us, not because MOH is pushing us to do so, but because it is in our best interest to keep safety going. And in this regard, I want to focus on 3 main points. First, safety is good for the bottom line. Safety is good for attracting and retaining talent in the industry. And safety is good for the long-term sustainability of the harborcraft industry. Now, I think you can tell very quickly, all 3 points are not standalone, they all interlink with one another. So, let's address the first elephant in the room. Is safety actually good for the bottom line? I think I hear from many people, look, I'm so busy with these things, I'm so busy with so many things every day, costs are going up, margins are getting squeezed. Do I have enough money to spend on safety? And I can tell you, from what we saw from Captain Hari's presentation earlier, the average cost of accident claims, you can see it right up here. I just summarized it for everyone. And let's not forget, this is just the average cost, and what Captain Hari said earlier as well. Some claims, when they come in hard and strong. It can be millions of dollars at a go, or hundreds of thousands of dollars. And let's not forget, there's also a deductible portion that comes straight out of your pocket, regardless of the premiums that you pay. Depending on the fleet size, type of work, each of us will encounter different variations of this. And in the conversation that I've had with several harborcraft owners and operators, I discovered quite a staggering statistic, which was anywhere from 2 to 5% of overall revenue goes into dealing with accidents, whether it's navigation issues, illness, and so on. Now, with our industry having margins squeezed, that is a huge proportion to be wasting on fixing any form of accidents that we have and paying for medical bills of our crew who we do not spend the effort to keep them healthy. But costs are only one factor. Let's not forget, when you have an accident, you have to send the vessel to the shipyard, your crew has to come off, you have teams that need to be activated to go and repair the vessels, and then you need to activate everyone, your insurance, so on and so forth. And if there's injury, hospital bills to pay, and more illnesses, and long-term issues to deal with as well with the crew. Our fleet is not optimized, and everyone in the office is rushing just to deal with the accident, when they could be spending all that time getting out there and earning more revenue for the company. Also, we'll keep reporting to MPA, and I'm sure MPA also doesn't want to spend the time chasing up on all of us to find out what happened with the accident. Now, I just want to run one thing through with everyone here. I want you to think about the impact of reducing accident costs, 2 to 5% of revenue. If you can save that, every dollar saved from an accident goes directly into your profit because it is just a cost. So if you can improve your margins by 2 to 5% just by reducing your accidents or trying to make it as minimal as possible, that will directly improve your bottom line. Now, contrast this with going out there to try to get any other dollar of revenue. From getting more revenue, at the most, 15 to 20% of that will translate into profit. So I think I just want to get this across to everyone. If you can reduce your accident rate, you can reduce your accident costs, you immediately increase your profit. And I can guarantee you, all your shareholders will also be happier, and there'll be more bonus for everyone in the company. Now, I want to talk about safety's impact in attracting and retaining talent. So, we all agree, if you have good safety, everyone has better bonuses, and we can be sure that the word will spread around that your company is reputable. And it's not just being reputable in Singapore, it's also being reputable overseas. Why is this important? Money aside, most people look for a company that cares for them before they join. And people will look at your safety record and look at how you treat your team members. They will go on the vessel, they'll see if the vessel is nice, if everything is updated, whether you're professional, and that is a key part of how people make their decision to join the company. It is not just about how much you can pay. Employees that stay are also motivated to be more productive, and they'll stay with the company longer. Additionally, they will be sure to tell their friends in the industry that your company is great, and I'm sure you'll be getting more people applying for jobs with you. Of course, I want to get back to the bottom line again, because this is something that's very important for all of us. Employees that stay longer are more productive. You retain the talent. HR doesn't have to waste all their time going through countless resumes and hiring and hiring and hiring. I think most of you also have experienced this throughout the course of the past few years. I think when we look at some of our internal statistics, for every 1,000 resumes we go through, we interview maybe, because there are many qualified people out there, maybe 500 of them, but we only had to retain about 2 or 3 of them over a 1-year period. So I think that amount of time and effort needed to be spent to hire and retain people in the industry is actually ridiculous. If we can actually get there, we will save our efforts and keep them inside. But safety is definitely something that the young are looking at, and we need to try to get them into our industry as much as we can. Now, my last point is that safety is good for the sustainability of the entire Harbourcraft ecosystem that we're all a part of. You can see it consists of everyone in the audience, actually. I think we have owners, we have P&I Club, we have suppliers, we have shipyards, and so on. And this really takes all of us working together to keep the industry going in the long run. Now, I just want to share 2 examples of how some behavior can both positively and negatively affect our entire industry. I think I mentioned a bit earlier, it's not too long ago, that just an errant company put our entire industry in the spotlight in the fight against the pandemic, and we were flushed with new rules that came so fast, and all of us were always rushing to fix the issues. Now, for those that remember, this cost us countless man-hours and countless dollars. We had managers and supervisors delivering food to the ships, delivering food all over the place, and suddenly everyone was flushed with doing new things that were not productive. But everyone did it, because we knew we had to do our part. Also, I think one of the things Captain Hari shared earlier, industry-wide, it is good for all of us to be safe. Why? We all know that if we have accidents, our premiums will go up. But if everyone else in the industry has accidents and we are really good, our premiums will still go up. And not only that, even if we're all good, but someone in the peripheral industry is not so good, it then can hit us and our premiums will still go up. So it's actually good to have safety all around, so that our costs will come down there, and actually, more importantly, our crew are kept safe. I strongly believe that having a good safety culture industry-wide will have positive benefits. We'll be able to overcome some of the key issues the industry has been facing for many years. Number 1, attracting talent. I think this is something that we've been facing with, and we've been struggling with for at least 10 years. We'll improve our productivity and bottom line, and we'll build trust with MPA that we can manage safety in the port. And our staff will keep staying with us, and our customers will be very satisfied with what we do. I think we've been hearing a lot of feedback also from shipping lines that come into port. They're asking a lot of launch operators to have 2 men on board. They want some of the vessels to be upgraded, but all this needs to work hand in hand. And I think as we all invest in safety, we'll see the returns coming back to us very quickly. Now, hopefully I've convinced everyone that safety is good for you and good for the bottom line. So I want to address some more practical matters right now. We've done well in the past 2 years to keep safety down, but I want to bring up 2 points. First, death and injury from persons crossing over, ship-to-ship transfers from launches to vessels. I think that is the main cause of death right now in the Port of Singapore. To address some of this, I think MPA and MOM are clamping down hard on this. And the WSH Act makes it the employer's responsibility to provide PPE for all their team members and to ensure they can perform their work safely. The masters of ocean-going vessels also need to ensure that their crew have to have a life jacket when embarking and disembarking from vessels as is part of the ISM code. Now, MPA and MOM have both agreed that punitive action will be taken against individuals who fail to comply with the regulations. And on this note, I want to point out that Harbourcraft masters are encouraged to remind all their passengers, individuals embarking or disembarking, to wear a life jacket. And for owners and operators and managers out there, please encourage your Harbourcraft masters to report any such incidents to MPA for action to be taken. And on this note, I want to give a shout out to Cast Launch. I think they've been doing a very good job. Some of their masters have received some recognition for the efforts they've taken to make sure that their passengers stay safe. Next, with the opening up of the port, we are seeing an increase in navigation accidents, such as collision and grounding. Operating in Singapore is not easy. We have thousands of ships running around in a small area every day. And we have a lot of islands, and we also have a lot of shoreline that is around. I would like to encourage companies to implement safety breaks for your crew, especially during night navigation. Just take 30 minutes off. Let them sit down, have a coffee, relax a little bit, and then before they go on with their tasks. Also, there are new technologies out there that can be used to help and improve safety. I think one of the ones that I'm a big fan of is geofencing. And geofencing basically helps identify a mapped area, whether you're entering a lane, a shipping lane, or you're entering shallow waters or known danger areas where there's land reclamation. It will just give an alert to your crew, and on our vessels, we put audio and visual alarms. So if they are getting close or they enter areas that we restrict, there will be a very annoying alarm that will be blaring, that will keep going on, and then there will be some lights flashing in the cabin as well. So if they are very tired, they will wake up and they will get out of the area as soon as they can. Now, we have to take care of our guys. A lot of the navigation accidents and grounding incidents are because they're too tired. Fatigue management is very key. We have seen Harbourcraft ground directly into the shore. It's almost like beaching, and I wonder how they did not see the entire shoreline in front of them. It's because they were too tired. We've also seen Harbourcraft get ridiculously close to container vessels. Once again, container vessels are so large. How could they not see them? It's most likely that they were too tired. So please, take care of your crew and try to reduce all these incidents by giving them a bit more rest. Now, with that, I've come to the end of the presentation, and I just hope that I have the chance to convince everyone here that we should prioritize safety for the industry. And it's just three main things to take away. It is good for the bottom line, it's good for all our team members, and it's good for the industry as a whole. And with this, I would like to thank everyone for your time, and I would like to hand over back to the event organizers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Koh. Looking forward to hear more from you in the segment later on as well. So ladies and gentlemen, as we move into the panel discussion right now, I'd like to invite all of our members of the audience here today to participate in our panel session by logging into Pigeonhole. So we're going to be flashing a QR code on the screen. I want to invite you to, take out your mobile phones, to scan that QR code right there, or to launch your internet browser and key in www.pigeonhole.at. Our event passcode for today is Safety at Sea, and over there you'll be able to submit your questions, which hopefully will be picked for discussion during the panel discussion on stage right now. So now that that is out of the way, hopefully all of you have managed to access the Pigeonhole. I'd like to tell you a little bit more about our panel discussion for today. So the topic of discussion is instilling a strong safety culture for the harborcraft industry. And for this, I'd like to invite our moderator, Mr. Bernard Wong, Head of Fleet Management at PSA Marine Private Limited. Big round of applause for him, please. I'd also like to introduce our panel for today. We have Mr. Mark Koh, Executive Director at Tiansan Shipping Private Limited and member of the National Maritime Safety at Sea Council in Singapore. Captain Hari Subramaniam, Regional Head of Business Relations and Medici at the Ship Owners P&I Club. Captain Chong Jia-chuan, Port Master at the Maritime and Port Authority of Singapore, as well as Mr. Chan Yu Kwong, Senior Consultant at the WSH Council and member of the National Maritime Safety at Sea Council in Singapore. And with that, now that we have all of our gentlemen on stage, I'll hand the time over to our panel moderator. Mr. Wong, please.
Thank you. Good morning, distinguished guests, friends, and industry colleagues. It is good to be out here after a long time going on virtual conferences. And I hope that you have enjoyed the session thus far as much as I have. And a big shout out to all of you who are present here today, as well as those who are attending virtually and online. Now, my name is Bernard Wong, and I'll be your moderator this morning. Do take note of the Pigeonhole QR code. We want to encourage you to actively participate in the polls that's coming up, as well as to put forward any burning questions that you might have to the panel. Now, to start this segment off, I would like to introduce my fellow panelists, not in the usual way, but to tell you a little bit something unique about each of them. So on my left, I've got Captain Chong, and Captain Chong enjoys listening to music of all genres, from R&B, New Age to classical, and he loves to spend his free time tending to his balcony garden. And on my further left, I've got Yu Kong. And how many of you know that actually Yu Kong, in his weekends and public holidays, he actually enjoys cycling with his 11-year-old Maltese dog, safely secured in a bicycle pad seat on designated cycling trails at East Coast Park and Punggol Waterway Park. And if you are there on the weekends, do say and wave to Yu Kong. And I've got Mark. Mark is an avid traveler and enjoys exploring exotic destinations off the beaten track, either glamping or camping, one place at a time. And we've got Captain Hari. How many of you see him as an avid sportsman who loves soccer and prefers spending time outdoors with nature in parks or by the sea? Well, you can read all about their CVs and biographies online. And I thought I would like to just start off by introducing them in a different way. Now, to get things started, we'd like to flesh out the poll question on our screens. The first straw poll question: what is the greatest challenge you've encountered in instilling a safety culture in your company? Now, for those of you who have not yet participated, please do, and we will come back after we kicked off the first two questions to revisit the results of this straw poll. Now, first, what is one key message from your presentation you would like to emphasize to our audience here today? Perhaps I would have Captain Hari to share his thoughts.
Thank you, Bernard. So I think from the gist of my presentation, because of the human element, I think people or human resources, in my opinion, is one of the most important thing that we need to take care of, because they can make and break any organization, let alone Harbourcraft or the industry. Any organization, the people are the one who define it, right from complying with standards, and they can actually take you to different levels. So it's important we must spend time in, I wouldn't like the word investing because it sounds very tangible, but it's intangible. We need to spend time mentoring our new generation, sharing with them, making sure they are on track, they are okay. And I think that is very important towards improving the entire ecosystem, like Mark said, the shipping ecosystem. And I'd like to add on this, even autonomous vessels. We're talking of autonomous vessels. Yeah, the vessels go on their own is what the final end game is all about, but we need people in the background to make sure it keeps ticking. So the human element, the human interface is always going to be predominant on however digital we go. So I think we need to invest deeply and wisely in them.
Right. Thank you, Captain Hari. And Mark, what is that one key message you would like the audience to remember?
I think coming off what Captain Hari said, when it comes to the human element, a lot of us are driven by motivation. So the key thing I was trying to deliver is that safety is good for the bottom line. Why? Most of us in the industry have a commercial purpose. We need to see that safety is good for us and there is a benefit. Hopefully, we can all see that safety does in fact improve our bottom line. And this hopefully is also motivation for persons or companies to put in the effort and commit to it. I know they want to talk about it as investment, but I think a lot of people are viewing it as, what's my ROI from spending this money? Because that's what happens when you go to the boardroom, and a lot of times that's what happens. Now, that is not just at the board level, it's also at all the individual level. Do they see safety as something good for themselves? Because the human element comes back into play, and the buy-in of everyone is key. So my view is, from a company standpoint, of course, there must be a commercial benefit. Our profits must be better. But I think from the individual standpoint, there's also two key things. My health is better, but I also can look forward to a bit more bonus as we make sure there are no accidents in the company as well.
Right. Thank you for that, Mark. Now, the theme for today's Harbourcraft Safety Forum is instilling a strong safety culture. Now, we all have limited time and resources. There's only 24 hours in a day. Where would you suggest for our Harbourcraft operators and managers to focus on in getting started on this safety journey? Perhaps I could invite Yu Kong to share his thoughts.
Okay, thank you very much, Bernard. I think there's no shortcut to developing a strong safety culture at your workplace. And from my past experience, let me just give an example of a construction work site, for example. When I go to a work site to do an inspection, the first thing that I look at is the overall housekeeping condition of the work site. If it's very messy and debris are all over the place and all that, and my conclusion, even before talking to the people, is that the safety culture within this work site of the company is going to be poor, bad, because workers are not taking ownership of the work environment, and neither is the management making sure that the people are taking ownership and keeping the site safe. So I think the first and most important thing about developing a strong safety culture is that you must have the leadership and commitment of the management to strive towards getting the workplace safe and in a healthy condition for the employees to work. So you can't have a culture, you can't go on to develop a strong safety culture by just emphasizing or communicating to an employee that you must work safe, you must learn to be safe, you must take care of your own safety and health and all that, while the environment at the workplace is not safe. So first and foremost, I would say that management must put in place measures to render the workplace in a safe condition and without ill health to the workers. And from there, then your employee will then take note and say, oh, my employer is taking care of me, he cares for my safety and health, and I need to then work safe. I need to take ownership of my safety and health, as well as the safety and health of the co-workers. So I think that is very important. Leadership commitment, senior management leadership and commitment to making the workplace safe for the employees. And then from there, you communicate this strong desire to take care of your workers and encourage them to be taking ownership of their safety and health. And of course, you have to put in place other measures like training, safe management system and all that. And with all this, you can work on the culture of the workplace. Because I've come across many companies that say, oh, let's jump into building a safety culture without doing anything for of your environment and all that. And after several months of what we call culture building exercises and all that, everybody go back to the old way. Why? Because the environment is not safe. So it doesn't make sense for the worker to work safe when the environment is not safe. So I say the first and foremost is the company senior management must take leadership and commitment to communicate to the employees that I'm there for your safety and health. I have a safety and health policy drafted and signed by the top men to declare that. And through many other initiatives like training, development of safety procedures and management system, I visibly show to the employees that I'm doing it for you. So I think that will help you to start on your journey to building a strong safety culture. And I'll say it's not easy, but it's worth the start. And as Mark has shown, at the end of the day, it's good for your bottom line, it's good for retaining your talent, and it's good for the entire ecosystem.
Thank you, Yukong. So what I gather from you is that it is important for visible leadership and commitment to actually set the tone and the pace for the rest of the organization to follow.
Yep.
And most importantly, with that commitment, with that visibility, changing and transforming the culture would then come naturally as a result of that visibility and commitment. Thank you for that, Yukong. Mark, what are your thoughts? Where should they start?
I can't agree more with what Yukong has said. Now, leadership is key. But it's not just leadership from the top. Leadership from the top, I believe, sets in motion things like policies, resources for the company, for all the team members. But besides top management, there's a lot of leadership in all areas of the company. And let's say in shipping, you have your superintendents, you have your masters on the vessels, you have your engineers. Each one of them are not technically rank and file. They're all leaders in their own way. And they need to also take the leadership to put safety up there. Now, one of the key things is communication. A lot of times what happens is the top decides something, there was no interaction with the ground, and there's no buy-in. So the buy-in for the top typically is commercial, but the buy-in as you move along, it can be partially your own health and safety, focusing on keeping safe on your job, keeping the people next to you safe, and also keeping yourself safe to go home to your families every evening or after your time in Singapore. You want to make sure that that message can be delivered across. So at different levels of leadership, there must be different kind of messages that you want to bring across. And I believe when you start understanding this a bit more, your safety culture will just kind of spread throughout the company because everyone is focused on it. At the end of the day, when that starts happening, I think we need to talk about one more loop. People will start wanting to spend a lot of time and effort on safety, and then management may come back and say, hey, you're spending too much time on it. We're putting too much into it. So there must always be a balance. And I think maintaining the balance will push a lot of communication in the teams. But you must make sure the communication doesn't become negative. So leadership at all levels and constant communication is, I think, what people need to focus on.
Right.
Thank you.
So what I gather from you is the need to involve the middle management. The middle managers who actually run the day-to-day operations are actually also vital to ensuring that the right culture, values, and commitment gets communicated all the way from the top to the down and vice versa.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right. Thank you for that, Mark. And Captain Hari, from a marine insurer's perspective, where do you think our hovercraft operators could get started?
Right. Before I jump in, I mean, just to echo what Mark is also saying, there's that saying, and I'm sure I've got it all wrong, but if you think investing in safety or training is expensive, try having a claim. That's the thing. So I think it's a very important point to make. Again, for me, where we can get started, I think, is well-being of seafarers. Yeah, I'm a people's person. I should probably be at People's Park. But I think it's quite important where well-being. People think that probably harborcraft seafarers, why should they have well-being? They're just going to do a few hours and, they'll come back home in the evening and go back home. But like we said, there are a lot of seafarers who stay on board for months together, the foreigners who come and work over here. And so it's important because they represent a huge contingent as well. So another thing in well-being, people just say mental well-being. It's very easy to just loosely say mental well-being. Listen to some yoga music or listen to some water flowing or some forest falling down or something and you'll get peace. How I wish it was as easy as that, But it's not. I mean, the ground truth is it's not easy as that. But physical health, and people tend to neglect physical health because it's one of the most difficult things. If I tell how many of you all have gone for a jog in the morning or going in the evening or going to exercise, you all probably are going to escape me and not even talk to me during the networking session. So physical health is very important. It is no secret that what domino effect it has on safety culture, because if people are not optimally, physically healthy completely, their mind's going to wander about a lot of other things rather than, stay core and focused. It's as important as people over here who have had a good night's sleep and come alert than the ones who have been, watching naughty programs on Netflix all night and then probably have come here not feeling tip-top. So physical health is something we can start immediately. Operators can make sure they can take part in enhanced medical programs, pre-employment medical joining programs. The club, like I said, has the Medici program, and then where we can also give in health and well-being tools. There is a thing, you give a seafarer a fish or give anybody a fish for a day, you give him a fish, you could feed him for a day. Not me, I'm vegetarian. But if you teach him how to fish, then probably he can fend for a lifetime. There's the saying, so we need to equip them to take care of themselves. There's one more point I'd like to make regarding, shore operations team. What we've seen, it's very important to have a mariner, somebody who's got some marine background, who's probably gone and ridden a few waves, to actually be the person in the operations team talking to the masters. We have some very good operational personnel who have never been out to sea, and they're managing fine, but if they are the ones advising the masters and giving them guidance in these things, and the masters looking up to them, it's important that they have spent some hours at sea, some days at sea, and they can actually relate on the magnitude of problems and give some effective guidance. We see a lot of places where this is lacking, and I think a little bit of marine expertise is very important. Now, there is going to be an argument, there's going to be an outcry saying that these are an endangered species. You don't get these people anymore, If people have gone out to sea, they're sitting on a panel like this and faffing like me. But who's going to be running ships? But you may not get people with sailing background, but then there are now a lot of courses. If you talk to people, even there's something at Singapore Maritime Academy, etc., hands-on courses where they can get some requisite experience. There's always the chance that if you've identified somebody to be your operations manager in the succession planning, there's no harm sending him out to shadow the master or the staff on board. He can sail for a few hours, get some sea time under his belt. It need not be 14 and 16 months out at sea, but at least he should be able to appreciate the problem and give proper guidance to the masters. So these are the 2 points, I think, wellness of seafarers, even though they're harborcraft seafarers, as well as, the marine expertise is is something we can start immediately.
Right. Thank you, Captain Hari. And now to you, Captain Chong. What is your view?
I think your question, you start with the 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we have so much things to do to address the safety, to instill the safety cultures. Yes, it is really a big thing to do. So I guess the very first approach is to how to make it into a bite-sized approach. Where are the low-lying fruits that can be easily attainable, that we can first, step, moving forward on the small steps and start seeing results. So I would say that first thing is not to straight away looking at that set a timeline that immediately I want to reduce incidents or what, but I feel like it's to do a management review to understand where are the issues within the management that probably has not really addressing some of the safety or incidents problem on the grounds that lead to accidents or any hiccup in the operations. So I think that clarity is very important. So senior management, I think from the presentation from Mark, is focused a lot about senior management, leaderships. That is actually first set the right steps into knowing exactly where is it, the systems that we can improve it at a very small steps. I have seen that some teams has actually improved their safety standards by just reassigning simple job from A to B, and the whole team can see big improvements. So I think this is something that a very small things and yet can achieve big results. And also from this morning forum, I think Captain Hari has already show us by the statistic, showing that actually the human part is a lot that affecting today safety, leading to the increase in incident rate or some of the operations are failure in the operations. So this is already giving us a clue that these are the area where the humans is something that we will need to focus on. I'm also looking at, especially the employer, the change of the mindset, which Mr. Chan highlight about the culture starting from workplace. The employer need to change. I would say that probably the leader need to change the mindset. It is not about, yes, it is about money making. That's why I'm having this business. But at the same time, the time has changed now that it requires a lot about social responsibility. How we take care of that individuals, every single staff that working with us to have that commitment, that loyalties, and also to work as a team. So sometimes it is I feel that the staff feel good even if my supervisors of my managers check on me, how was your rest before, number of hours of rest before you come to work, rather than just giving me loads and loads of work, and until I set into a fatigue situations, still nobody from the management is caring about my well-being. So I think the first steps, again, back to these questions, is that have a quick overview, get the clarity, where are the areas that probably that has gone wrong, what are the immediate first step, small steps that we can achieve, we can do, and has the maximum impact to slowly change the safety cultures within the organizations.
Right. Thank you, Captain Chong. And I take it that one way to look at it is to go for the low-hanging fruits, and then address this in a bite-sized manner. But most importantly, what I gather from your sharing is to demonstrate care and empathy to our team members and colleagues.
Just to add on, I think the Workplace Safety and Health Council has a free voluntary e-tool called Culture Safe. You can download it from the website of the WSH Council. And this tool help you to assess the state of WSH culture at your workplace. It is a kind of e-survey system whereby you get your employees to answer a series of questions, both at management, supervisory, and workers level. And the tool will crunch the data, the answers from the employees' returns, and it will give you sort of a assessment of the state of your WSH culture. And from there, it also recommends certain things that you should do. So I thought that may be a good start for companies in the Harbourcraft industry who are interested in knowing what is the state of my WSH culture in my company. So if you want to go to the website of the WSH Council, it's www.wshac.sg, and search for the word culture safe. And it's a free e-tool. You can download it and you can do your survey within your company, or you can engage a safety and health consultant to help you to do it. And then from there, I think you can start your journey of looking at how to improve the WSH culture in your company.
Right, thank you for that, Yu Kwong. We'll now come back to the first straw poll that we did earlier. Could I have the straw poll put up on the slides, please? Okay, while we wait for the straw poll results to appear on the screen, there you are. Just to recap, what is the greatest challenge you've encountered in instilling a strong safety culture in your company? And these are the responses. And we can see from the 50 votes that have come in, 32% of them have shared that it is the lack of leadership and emphasis from the management team, followed very closely by about 28%, citing the lack of safety training and skills competency programs. And thereafter, third, following closely, competing priorities and many distractions. Now, Yu Kwong, coming back to you, you have worked with many companies to review incidents and recommend improvements. What do you make sense of this straw poll results vis-a-vis with the struggle that companies experience in changing their status quo, in changing existing practices?
I'm not surprised with the outcome where it says that the lack of leadership and commitment. I mean, from my experience, it's always the case because employees do look at their senior management and say, do these guys, are these guys interested in the safety and health of myself as well as my co-workers? Because I'm working 24/7 to earn the money for this big company or this small company. And at least if they show interest in taking care of my safety and health, then the employees will say, okay, it's a company worth working for. And I think even among the young employees, the young millennium, culture is very important to them, the corporate culture as well as the safety and health culture. And I would say that it is important for the company senior management to really take an interest in looking into the safety and health culture of the company. And I'm quite sure from this straw poll, it already shows that everybody thinks the same. Management, leadership, and commitment are very important. And I will emphasize that there's no shortcut to developing a strong safety and health culture. You have to start that journey. And the first thing is safety and health policy that has meaning, as well as it's not a NATO document, no action talk only. You must translate that policy into actionable item. And like what Captain Chong said, you don't have to do things in a big way, but start on the low-hanging fruit. Get your management team, your supervisory staff, your workers, your employees interested in it, and then together walk that journey. And I can say that there are many big companies, small companies who have achieved success in having a strong safety and health culture, and they're benefiting from the good bottom line, strong retention of talent, as well as not getting any visits from the regulators. I think that's very important.
Thank you for your insights, Yu Kong. And to you, Mark, I mean, you are senior management in your company, and seeing these results, how do you make sense of that?
I do agree. It comes from the top. And I think the top has to put their time and effort into it. Now, on this part also, maybe I have to defend other Harbourcraft owners or senior management as well. And I think this is actually a question that is not new. I think Yu Kong, we've spoken about this in some of our working group meetings before, where some of the team, some members of the working group have also asked, hey, I've already put in all these resources, I've hired the safety guy, put in the policies, I spend this money, but the guy is still crashing my boat. So where does that kind of put us? And I believe some of the questions even got kind of stronger to go to Captain Chong to say, hey, Captain Chong, can you go and find the guy or not? I cannot do anything about it already. I spent all this money, he still got into the accident. What can you do? But I think one of the key things we discussed during our meetings was, and this goes back to that point we were talking about, the communication must go up and down. You see, people feel the leadership is not putting in the effort. Then sometimes the leadership feels like, hey, I've done everything already, I've given you everything you want. You got more than PPE, the technology, this and that. How did you crash it into the shoreline, which, how could you not even see the Singapore island on your boat? And sometimes it happens. But I think one of the things that we spoke about was, on both sides, there should not be a blame culture. We should not look at one another and think about it being a problem. For example, senior management cannot look at the team and say, hey, you are not doing it right. We need to kind of dig into it and find out what is wrong. When an accident happens, we typically have an investigation. And I think I learned this from one of Captain Kunal's talks a few years ago. I think the way they approach it is never to look at who to blame or what the person's doing wrong. But let's say when you're investigating a case of a navigation accident, think about, why did your master think he was making a right thing at the time? Because the situation is always dynamic. So I think in going into that type of direction, you take away the blame culture, yet you get to the root cause very quickly. So I think that's a very good tip. I think we learned from MOT and how they investigate accidents. They don't blame anyone. They see everything fairly. Now, the next thing is also, I think that communication line needs to be better. Why is it that people think senior management is not involved? Sometimes it's as simple as being there, showing up and caring, the empathy part. That makes a huge difference. Why? Because most of the time, most people do not have time to go to every site. But sometimes just showing up for toolbox meetings, showing up maybe even once a month. And once a month for a toolbox meeting is not very much. I think that would make a difference to the team members to show that, hey, top management actually cares. You're not just a face on, oh, somebody sign off. I recognize a squiggle on that policy on the boat. So I think that face time from senior management is very important, and the connection from senior management is very important as well, to influence our team members to get up there. And that's part of communication also. A lot of times we're all on Zooming now or on Teams, but sometimes that personal touch does make a difference. So communication will be key for all layers of management to improve safety. And I think empathy and an understanding that we try not to blame one another for these things would be absolutely key.
Right. Thank you, Mark. And to you, Captain Hari, how do you see it from a marine insurer's perspective? What can we do to encourage more change as we see on the results for the straw poll?
As a marine insurer, I'm smiling as I say, we keep stirring the pot. So, we've got a lot of statistics. We analyze a lot of statistics, and I've shown you from our tonnage profile and the claims profile, we see a lot. We see a lot globally. We can actually benchmark Singapore Harbour crafts with another jurisdiction. We could see how they stack up against the global analysis, because we have a huge pot. And And what we do is, it's quite important that when you're doing analysis or causation of these claims, the viewpoint is very important. Now, if I go and do my analysis from a club's viewpoint, and probably if Mark does a causation of the same thing, and if Captain Chong and if you do it, and if anybody in this room does it, probably we might arrive at very different pictures. So it all depends on the viewpoint of who's doing it. From a club, it's easy for me to say that we look at it at a quite unbiased point of view, because we represent nobody and we represent everybody. So we are doing it mainly for a safety point of view, to try prevent recurrence of the claim, rather than pointing fixtures. So that viewpoint is very important. What do insurers do? Like us, sessions like today, we burst bubbles. When everybody thinks it's a hunky-dory world, everything is awesome, there again comes that nasty P&I guy with his bag of statistics to tell you rubbish. So it's important we try to show what the actual ground truth is. Quite often, I wouldn't say it's ignorance, but sometimes the middle management tries to manage things and the top management really doesn't see, and what they don't see, they believe is good news. So it's something like that. So we try to showcase stats as they are to the industry. These are ways we can actually promote sharing. Like I said during my presentation, it's important that we can use these to find out what initiatives are required, what needs to be changed, what needs to be fixed, does it need to be fixed, rather than just kind of wasting a lot of resources and saying, I like the sound of this, let's do this, and probably, but that's not the problem. No, never mind, it looks good. So it's a complete waste and it doesn't solve the problems. This is what we like to do. We've got a lot of shareholders over here, stakeholders of the club who are entered with the club. Yourself, Mark. So just to let you all know and reassure you that this statistical analysis is completely benign. These are only numbers, it's completely sanitized, and these numbers are actually what promulgate a good sharing experience. It's not necessary that you have to trace back, oh, you try to work your way back, oh, that was the one. That's again going back to a blame culture, and really it doesn't achieve anything. So just to let you all know, this is completely sanitized, and nobody needs to worry, it's just to promote learning.
Right. Thank you, Captain Hari. So with more visibility, with the data insights, we do hope that it can help the management of all the different hovercraft operators to make more insightful decisions, and then tweak the culture and also improve their safety management systems. And Captain Chong, from a MPM perspective, looking at the results of the straw poll, what are some of the ways you feel more help can be provided to many of these hovercraft management teams?
I think this is a very good result from this straw poll. I also see that there's actually some links between some of the area that, as I mentioned earlier, trying to simplify issue, see the clarity of it, and how we can approach it to get the maximum result. Like, for example, the lack of safety training, skill competencies. I see that this area is actually also very closely linked to what is the management directions towards training. How serious am I, as an employer, responsible employer, that I want to chart out, to ensure safety at seas for the crew, for the master, and what kind of relevant trainings that I need to ensure that I provide to my staff. It is quite common that, when we discuss with some of the crew on board the hovercraft, they probably say that the last training I had was like 5 years ago or even longer, and every day I was just bringing the boat from here, A to B, and B to C, and coming back. So I think this is very closely related to how management set that directions to address the training or competency part. And on the second one, which is 24.1%, the competing priorities and distractions. Yes, of course, I understand that, especially over this couple of years, or it has been quite some times, that the manpower crunch is always some things that the hovercraft community trying to address. Lacking of that support, the hiring of people, retain them so that they can fill up the manpower gaps. And basically that, with the very limited resources, how they need to reprioritize their work, that will have certain impact to the job on the ground. So I think this is, I feel that the gap is basically a lot more, again, I would like to trace back to the management team on this part. I've engaged with good companies, Harbourcraft, and understand that some of them who have a very strong system, ISO, any documentation, safety management system in place, a simplified one, very similar to ocean-going vessels like ISM, but in a very simplified version to address their day-to-day need, because they don't go out to big oceans, sailing to thousands of nautical miles, and they don't have crew which is signing on for 6 months and without stepping ashore. So the context or the atmosphere of this crew is very different from the ocean-going. But some things that we can learn from that, it is like what we see from the larger ocean-going vessel company. With the adoptions of ISM, basically we see a lot of improvements with the reductions of incidents out at sea, marine pollutions, death incidents. I think this is something the Harbourcraft community can learn from there and take a small steps to put in some of these management system in place. Of course, MPA, we recognize the importance of that, and some of the company will find it is a steep learning curve that, I need to start to develop something from scratch. I think for us, we have, for example, we have the MPA and the Harbourcraft Safety Working Group, which is Mark and myself is a co-chair, and we also have many members who are also working on that. And a lot of all these discussions, actually, we are talking how we can start these cultures, these management schemes to help company to bring forward, and also sharing of informations. These are I would say, a lot of these coffee talks that we actually, within the owners, share their good practices. And in fact, people like Mark, he has been leading a lot of discussions, guiding those who wish to change, to adopt a better good practices in their own company system. So this is something that we are facilitating that. Of course, we have to be very careful as a regulators. Today, I think as regulator is very different from the old days where, I bang tables, everybody would do it. If not, I'm going to fine you or what. But I think today it is more of knowing our own responsibility as our social responsibility, taking care of the safety of the whole port operations, safeties of all the other port users, environmental protections, and also carrying that, having the empathy to care every single one working in the organizations. So I would say that we are looking forward to still working with the Harbourcraft community, soft push all these efforts to help every individual company continue to monitor the data come from Captain Harry. So that will help us to keep us check how is our progress year by year. And I think the result from the stats has shown some improvements. And also over the years, especially we have seen that some decrease or drop in some of the incident rate. I think like Mark in his presentations, he mentions about we have also encouraged a lot more reporting coming to us so that we can pinpoint to any bad practices, unsafe practice straight on the ground, and we can address it rather than having rules that actually sometimes it can have quite impact to some of the company in their operations. So I think cooperation is very important with the industry, and data is also very important to keep us aware where are the areas that we need to fill up the gaps. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Captain Chong.
Bernard, if I can also just jump in on the same point. So,
yes.
For those in the room, just to clarify, the P&I Club is not only providing data. So we also engage with our entered vessels. We've got technical teams, our loss prevention teams, our claims teams. We actually sit down together and we come out with club-based initiatives and we discussed with the management of various ship owners entered with us. We actually showcased, now this is industry-wide and this is regional-wide. We do as per members, their own shipping companies, we review their claims and we see what problems there are. We actually do management reviews and we discuss with them to see what's actually stacking up with the rest of Singapore's harbour crafts and etc. And then we work with them, we review their procedures, we give them advice. So there is a lot of value-added services if you align with a proper insurer. And that's also available free of cost. Of course, you do pay a premium, but then you do not have to keep increasing it for every value-added services. It all comes as a package. So we also do a lot of work. I really, so far I've been pitching that I'm just probably a numbers person. I'm absolutely not that. But I think a lot of people in the room have always been engaging with the club also on these initiatives, and they are free of cost.
Right. Thank you, Captain Hari, for the added comments. I'm keeping a close eye on the time that is left. So before we share the results of the second straw poll, I thought it would be good to actually go into the Pigeonhole Q&A and highlight 2 questions that many of you in the audience have upvoted. So let me just click on this button and I'll try to push this question, and it's directed at Captain Hari. While the question loads, let me just share that with you. Do you see structured training playing a role in changing statistics for the better? And if so, I would like to add on, how much of the improvement in statistics can be correlated with structured training? There you have it, the question on the screen.
I think structured training is important rather than just having machine gun fire and see how many people you can hit. You just can't just keep spamming and see some of it will hit the target. Structured training is very important because the focus is there. It's important that the training is structured in such a way that the people will learn or take away what you want them to learn. And that is actually formulated basically on the statistics of what we've seen goes wrong. So I think definitely structured training is very important rather than try for a one-size-fits-all, because that usually doesn't work. Even in seafarers, if you see the harbour crafts community versus the blue water tonnage, it's definitely it's the same shipping industry, but they are different segments and that sizes don't fit. What works for them doesn't work for us. What works for us as a harbour club community doesn't work for them. So it's important that each segment gets its own specific training. How does this correlate? I think number of statistics definitely are improving. Now, there's something about number and seriousness of it. So we are encouraging people to report more. Like Captain Chong also said, even as a club, we encourage people to report more. Firstly, because it improves us to keep getting all our ducks in a row, because these claims can come within 1 year, 2 years, sometimes on their time bound. But it's better we are prepared, we collect whatever data at that point of time from our claims team, because once you move on 6 months down the line and you think nothing's going to come and all that data just kind of goes on the back burner. So it's important we capture it and keep it, so we encourage a reporting culture. Very often these do not result in claims at all. So while we see a number of statistics, there's also important to see how crucial, how bad the claim has become. That's another factor. But I think we are still evolving to come across with structured trainings. That's one of the points of this discussion, where we've said that we can actually put people to go for hands-on training, etc. We as a Harbour Craft Committee, we are also working towards structurizing these trainings towards Harbour Craft industry. And I would like to say that it's some time where it's not that you kind of put the card down and you won the game. It takes time. There is always some time. Statistics always it's a dampened effect to see it come down. It's not like immediately like a remote control. It takes its time, but I'm very optimistic it's much better than what it was a few years ago, and I think it's only going to improve. I'm going to take this to put the question back to Bernard. Bernard, you had shared with me that PSA was doing something specific, which was quite interesting in training your mid-level managers who are dealing with ship staff, people without sailing background, and it was working.
That's correct. I think what we try to do is to look for the available programs that are at SMA, and these are programs that are well recognized to equip many of our middle managers who may not have the prior knowledge or experience related to marine operations to quickly get them up to speed. And then with on-job learning and mentoring and coaching, we find that we have been able to groom the middle management to be more effective in their day-to-day operational roles. Mark, I see that you're holding the microphone. Would you like to add on to that question?
Yeah, thanks, Bernard. I think on top of that, I also like to point out one of the things for the Harbourcraft industry that's very interesting when we talk about structured training is that we often see structured training as something in the classroom. So it's kind of theoretical where it comes across. Yes, you need to have the kind of like the basic knowledge of these skills. But a lot of times when you actually operate in the harbour, a lot of the guys, when they're out there, they kind of eyeball it. You know, you just kind of go through and then you kind of like, all right, I want to get to this area. I can see Marina Bay Sands over there, so I'll just head in that direction. And at night, I recognize the lights of the refinery, so that I'm going in another direction. And none of this is actually captured in any form of structured training. So the emphasis also goes back to the on-the-job training. And that's something that we've not actually taken an approach to kind of put in any structure. Maybe that's something that some companies may need to look at a little bit more. I know on our side, we have a lot of on-the-job training. Masters are not allowed to operate on their own until they've shadowed someone for maybe 3 to 6 months, depending on their skill. Then they're allowed to go out. The next thing is also the situational awareness in our port is really important. Our port is very busy. And very often, the master or the steersman or helmsman will go out there and they'll see a situation that has never been covered in any books, in any of the training they've received. And they'll just see it and then they'll try to make a call. And very often, because not many of these guys have been in the industry for so long, they sometimes cannot make the right call. And that's kind of something that has come up in our investigation. So we really focus on the OJT part, but I do think it's time for some of that to have some structure because it's a lot of word of mouth. I want to see how you do it, how you perform, versus having a classroom session on that. So that's just something just want to point out that we see that's happening in the Harbourcraft industry.
Thank you. Captain Chong, would you like
Yeah, also want to add on a little bit my observations. I think trainings, we have to looking at it because looking forwards, especially I also understand about the manpower crunch issues. How are we going to reshape our trainings? Are we going to introduce a lot more training whereby the crew or the master start to use technology to help them to monitor their status on navigations? For example, Mark shared an example, this Harbourcraft that it directly run up to a rock bund, which I'm not sure whether there is any alarm that actually raise it to the master that the vessel is going into a rock bund. Or another case which Mark also shared that a Harbourcraft that directly hit into a anchored container vessel in the anchorage. So I think these are some of the mistakes that are human error, but how are we going to improve it? Am I going to just get one more lookout for it? It doesn't solve the problem. It is more of how are we going to adopt some technologies, some form of technology on board the Harbourcraft to help them to monitor their navigation safeties. When I went on board one of the Harbourcraft, I still remember I was looking for the ACDIS. I think back in 2012-13, MPA rolled out the AISB and also the ACDIS for some of the craft where we funded for these projects. But when I go up to the craft, the master actually showed me that his ACDIS was nicely packed up in a plastic bag and he never used. I was like, probably two areas is that the equipment is too expensive, you don't want to spoil it or damage it, or maybe he don't even know how to use it. So I think this area is something that the Harbourcraft community has to look into the training portions, how to introduce a lot more advanced technology that help them to carry out their day-to-day work.
Thank you, Captain Chong.
I think maybe I'll just add on just on that part. One of the things I mentioned that we found very helpful was kind of just using geofencing, and I think that's a very common technology. One of the key areas that we focus on was trying to make it what we call idiot-proof. So the master doesn't even have to do anything. The system will alert you when you're getting into trouble. Of course, when we program that, it's not just for the master. Immediately, the supervisor will get an alert. Your master is going a bit fast. Well, you can track things like speed, entering dangerous areas. Your master is taking a shortcut. One of the issues we have is shortcuts. And I think this happens also for the pleasure craft industry. A lot of people are not so used to tide. I mean, they should be used to tide tables. But sometimes, oh, I'm rushing back. It's almost 5 o'clock, especially for Harbour craft. Let's go, let's take the shortcut. And then, boom, there you go, grounded. And I'm sure some of us, we faced these incidents many times. So we have that in place so that if someone wants to take a shortcut, not only do they get an alert, but their supervisor also gets the alert, so they can take action on that straight away. So I hope that is something that Harbour craft industry can find useful, and if anyone wants to know more about it, I'm more than happy to share what we do.
Right. Thank you, Mark. We'll now move on to the second straw poll. The second straw poll results are in. Could I get the team to put it on the slides? And the straw poll question is, to what extent do you think technology can enable and facilitate a stronger safety culture in the Harbour craft industry? And on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being technology does not help at all, and 10 being technology helps a lot, we have the scores from the audience. There you are. And the average score is a 7.59, which tells us that there is a strong leaning that technology does and indeed enable and facilitate a stronger safety culture. Now, a question to you, Chong. You probably have encountered different types of applications and technologies being used in other industries. Do you see any example that could be relevant to the Harbour craft industry?
I think, I mean, many people have been talking about Industry 4.0, and this is in thing in the manufacturing sector especially. But it has been catching up in the construction industry also, where at work site they are using drones to fly over the work site to either do live monitoring and surveillance of the worksite condition, or to check on the status of the construction process and all that. Another application that I see in the construction industry is the using of mobile apps to do issuance of permit to work for high-risk work activities and all that. And in the marine industry, in the Harbour craft industry, I do see potential of such technology being applied to help to improve the safety and health performance of the Harbour craft industry. I mean, one example I can give is that you can use the mobile apps for the notification or the reporting of accidents and near misses at work. I mean, this is a very simple tool that you can use with your mobile phone or tablet, where you can report such incidents to your management, and then from there you do the analysis of what are the root causes to all this. Another application could be using it for, I mean, another example I can think of is the drone. In fact, I have a business proposition to the Harbour craft bosses. You have been using your Harbour craft to deliver goods and material from shore to vessel. Why not add drones to your fleet of vessel? Using drones to fly things rather than to send your people to deliver it. I mean, this is potentially a good business proposition for you guys, because instead of letting the IT people or the drone people to take over your business, it's your business. Buy a few drones and then start delivering the lighter items to the vessels that are in the harbour area or even passing by our streets. So I think that is one area that you can look at. And I think Mark also mentioned about geofencing and all that. That is the new technology being used. And I think there's been a lot of research work going into autonomous vessels. So potentially that may be the future, where you have harbour craft that are semi-autonomous, I would say, not fully autonomous, but with all the safety features to help to avoid collision in the harbour, in the congested harbour area.
Right, thank you, Yu Kong. Mark, what are your thoughts of the straw poll results?
I think it's very encouraging. I also think that the results kind of reflect that not everyone recognizes technology is very important to improve safety, but it's not the be-all and end-all of it. All right? At the end of the day, we still need to put in our effort. Technology can bring us to a certain point, and I believe that it can really improve safety. But at the end of the day, we still need to look at leadership. We need to look at how we behave and our communication. The key thing, I think, from Captain Harry's statistics, we're comparing that with this, it's still the human element. Can technology remove all the human errors or not? And let's not forget, I believe in commercial shipping or the big liners, a few years ago, there used to also be another line which was technology-assisted accidents. All right? They forgot the basics of seafaring and no one kept a lookout because all the instruments kind of said, hey, there's nothing there, but there's another huge ship coming your way. But no one actually looked out the window to have a look at it. So technology is important. I believe that it can help us solve a lot of things and really improve things, but we still have to look at the persons that are involved today. And until a point AI comes in that's very powerful, I think that is still something that we have to pay close attention to. It is still leadership. It is still communication. Now, moving forward also, with what Yu Kwong said, moving to drones and autonomous, I think this is something everyone's keeping a close eye on. Singapore style, sometimes we don't want to be first mover. We kind of want to see what's happening, does it work? But definitely the harborcraft industry is looking closely at things like autonomous vessels. One of the key reasons is, as Captain Chong mentioned, we've been facing a lot of manpower issues for a while. I think all the companies here see it. I think, Bernard, we've had a lot of conversation about this as well over the years, about the manpower crunch. So my point is, yes, it's great, but we still need to put our own effort in. We can't outsource it totally.
Right. Thank you, Mark, for sharing your thoughts on this. And Captain Harry, from a marine insurer's perspective, how can we bring data and technology to come into play here and support the harborcraft operators to do more on this?
Yeah. There are so many feeds of data now. I mean, with technology, we have a lot of electronic equipment on board, and all of them feed a lot of data. They can send a lot of data, and that is not possible for anyone to manually capture and write down notes. It's important for us that we have technology to harness technology, if you know what I mean. So the data which comes out from these equipment is not in our language. So we need something to actually gather that and process it and kind of translate it to our ABCD 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is important, and this is what artificial intelligence is all about. It's helping us capture the data from various viewpoints. It does not think for us as yet. And like Mark said, that is quite this thing, like you see these Android movies taking over the world. But it's important that these actually give us enough data to form us to assist our decision making. That's an important thing, because very often we sense, and data cannot sense, it can just state hard facts. That's an important thing. So that's why I think technology is very important. Also in terms of causation and claims analysis, this data gives us a lot of accuracies. We can actually pinpoint quite well without having a lot to assume. The assumptions is bare minimal now. It's all supported by data on what exactly conversations were taking place, what happened, what was the other vessel doing, AIS data is there, really a lot. So I think technology is very important to make sure we get proper analysis of data, and where data is concerned, you cannot argue with it.
That's right. And with the help of emerging and nascent programs and applications, we can even use data to predict behaviors.
Yes.
And that is something I believe all of us will be looking forward to, where we can actually prevent accidents even before it actually happens. And over to you, Captain Chong. Are there opportunities, in your opinion, to matchmake technology providers, technology vendors with the Harbourcraft industry? And are there incentives to encourage greater adoption of technology solutions for the Harbourcraft operators?
Yeah, I think over the years, like MPA has been working very closely, carrying out some collaboration, like example, CEMS, that in the Singapore Maritime, in the Singapore Polytechnics, to go into using technologies, how we can develop more of a close to AI system that help to improve navigations. I think this is one of the immediate things that we're trying to achieve to improve the navigation part. And of course, they are also, I understand that they are also company looking at fatigue management, how to monitor the master or the crew, the level of fatigues, so that the employer or the supervisor can come in to address all these issues. And we do have also a mean fund that are prepared to fund any new projects that is coming along the way that can help the industry to drive the industry, the efficiency, and also the safety portions part. So I think definitely, so we are working with the Harbourcraft community from the working group to explore what are the areas that we can improve. So I'm also looking at, especially on the manpower issues, how probably the deployments of assets, some things that we can think about can be better utilized, because every evening I can see so many Harbourcraft going to the same directions, going to the same anchorage, and all come back at the same time. Can we utilize the resources better, differently? Something that maybe we can learn it from some logistic company like DHL, FedEx, how they carry out deployments of their resources, their assets to deliver a service, be it crew change, provisions, so that we can help to consolidate, to help how to these deployments of resources out at the ground can be further improved. So I'm looking at very widely. It is not specifically that something to do with navigations. Obviously, it has to be overarching issues that can help to address all the challenges that faced by the Harbourcraft community.
Right. Thank you, Captain Chong. Now we are quite near at the end of this panel session, and I'd like to just end it off by asking each of you gentlemen your concluding thoughts and remarks. Maybe we'll start with Captain Hari.
I think today's forum has been excellent, and I think the community is now aware that we've got a Harbourcraft working committee, which consists of all the stakeholders in shipping, right from the MPA, from the Safety Council, and from operators, from the club. And there are quite a few who have not been able to attend today. They're probably virtual, but we as a community can make this change. And I think we should all work together. And if the will and the drive and the enthusiasm is there, I think impossible is nothing.
Thank you, Captain Hari. That was very inspiring. Mark?
Thanks. I think the key takeaway I hope everyone gets is safety at the end of the day is good for all of us. We're doing this for one another and the entire community. I've spent a lot of time talking about the bottom line. Yes, that's very important. But beyond the bottom line, we need to look at the long-term aspects of the community, and safety is definitely one of those areas that will keep us going, keep us attractive for both our staff and for customers. And I hope that everyone can keep that at top of mind. And I'm very encouraged as well. Like Captain Ari said, we have a good turnout today, and we are taking a lot of good progress led by MPA, especially in pushing safety forward. And I hope everyone can take that away. It's not just a chore. It is something that's good for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Yu Kong?
Yeah, I think safety and health is important to the company. And after these 2 years of COVID-19, where many companies have been locked down, I'm quite sure everybody have rest at home and reflected on what needs to be done to move the industry forward. And I think this is now the opportunity for the Harbourcraft industry to look into new areas, new avenue to chart the path forward to achieve better performance in WSH. And I hope that you can work together and collaborate and come up with the results. I think that will be something that I look forward to.
Thank you, Yu Kong. And Captain Chong?
I think very short. I think today's discussions are looking at the key thing is the people. As Mark say, avoid invest the word, but I think we need to invest on them. First is to set the management system correct. As an example, to lead the workforce forward. Invest on their well-being, empathize their work conditions, and also in their trainings. I think with the workforce which are well prepared, definitely we can see the incident rate greatly go down. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Captain Chong. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your patience and your attention. I hope you have enjoyed this forum as much as we have. Please give a round of applause to the panelists. Thank you, and back to you.
Thank you very much to our panelists for your insights and a thought-provoking discussion. Can I now invite all of you, gentlemen, to come to the front of the stage for a group photograph, please? Just at the front of the stage. You can remain on stage, and then I'll have our photographer to take a group photograph. Thank you very much. Another big round of applause for all of them here today. And so with that brings us to the end of the program. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for taking the time to join us at our forum today. We're going to be putting another QR code on the screen, and we would greatly appreciate it if you could help us to complete a feedback form so that we can get your views on today's session. Let us know how we can improve to make this better for all. And in other news, the official opening for the International Safety at Sea Week will be taking place in this very ballroom at 4 p.m. this afternoon. Registration will begin at 3:15 in the foyer. Also, another gentle reminder to all of our guests who have signed up for the industry site visits that are taking place tomorrow morning. If you have received an confirmation email, then please do take note that the meeting time will be at 7:30 a.m. tomorrow at the MBS Level 1 meeting point. But for now, I want to invite you all to proceed to the adjacent room for the networking reception that we have kindly prepared for you. Thank you, and we hope to see you at the other sessions for the International Safety at Sea Week.